coming up on how to be a journalist. You were on the very, very first School of Journalism course back in 2017.
I think, 17-year-old me had worked pretty hard for the past couple of years because I knew that I wanted to be a journalist.
Welcome to the How to Be a Journalist podcast. In celebration of News Associate's 20th year anniversary, throughout 2026, we're going to be interviewing people who have been there and very much done it. So, whether it's accomplished grads in our industry and even those who have taken the skills they've learned on the course and taken other industries by storm. Today's guest is Kennedy News and Media video desk manager and news editor, Adam Wareing. Before starting his current role, Adam actually got his BA in multimedia journalism and NCTJ with us at News Associates on the first ever School of Journalism course back in 2017. During that time, he had a lot of work experience opportunities at the likes of CNN, Yahoo, Channel 4 in sports media, and covered quite a bit of Manchester City, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about as we get into the conversation. But in his final year at the School of Journalism, he pitched his very first story to our sister news agency, Kennedy News and Media, and has got to the point where promotions subsequently followed. But as always, it is always better to hear from the guests themselves. So welcome to the How to Be a Journalist podcast. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad. Yeah, you did your research pretty well there, but I'm impressed.
Yeah, not too bad. We try. My producer puts in a lot of work behind it as well. Okay, at the moment, what have you been up to? What does the job of a video desk manager and news editor look like? Just give me your day to day.
Yeah, so now I'm news editing. I'm not writing as many stories as I used to do. But day to day, we provide content to all the national, local, pretty much any outlet around the world who's interested and wants to buy our content, pretty much. So the day starts with sending out a lot of that content to those outlets and making sure, it's landing on the desk of the people that we really want to see it. So it's important we do that straight away, get there first and send it out. And then from then on, for the rest of the day, it's all about working on the stories that we've got in the pipeline. Obviously, a lot of them will be in different stages. Some will be pitching stories to each other in our group chats, working out what the best angle is, and then going to, find how to contact those people, speaking to them, getting their story, putting it together as sort of a package to include pictures, video, and the words. And then, the cycle starts again. That's going to go out. We're going to try and place it with outlets and send it out and try and get our stories covered far and wide. That's the aim.
Yeah. And I always do find it quite interesting, just what a news agency is in the very first place. And to be fair, you are a little bit more qualified than myself to actually give a definition of what a news agency is. So could you just explain that for us for a second?
I'd say it's a news content provider. I think it'd be the simplest way to describe it. I had no idea what it was until I first pitched a story to it. And that's why it was so key that I was training in the next room to Kennedy News and Media when I did my journalism course back in 2017 to 2020, because it meant that I was able to see what those guys were doing, go in there and, do a bit of work experience, pitch a few ideas and learn how they worked. Because, as a consumer, you're not aware of news agencies, really. They have picture credits on stories. They rarely have journalists with bylines because usually the outlets like to have their reporter's byline on it, even if, they might have changed it up a little bit, rewritten it into their house style. We don't mind that, they take ownership of it from there and they might, put a little twist on it. So consumers really, and we're not really looking at news agencies and knowing what they are. Even journalists, as you start out, you probably wouldn't know. You're thinking, right, I want a job in, a national newspaper, or I want to work for my local paper, or have a patch that I wanted to work on, or something like that. That was me and a lot of other people when we started out training, not realizing what a news agency was, but then coming to learn what it is. I found it, really interesting, writing about pretty much anything, as long as the outlets would want to use it, we want to write it and we want to provide it to them. So that sort of freedom really attracted me to it in the first place.
Yeah, because you and correct me if I'm wrong, seem to be a big part of editorial such as, deciding which type of stories that your reporters and journalists are sourcing from social media or from online. How, like, talk to me through your editorial involvement. What sort of stories are you looking for? If there was somebody listening to this podcast that is like, okay, this seems like a really good opportunity for me to pitch a story to an actual news agency, like, what are you looking for?
So, well, maybe one of two ways. Look what's out there at the moment, and what those people who you want to write for are doing. You know, what positions are they taking on things, if they do have a, political position, if you want to go that way, or what are they particularly focusing on at the moment? What are they writing about more than anything? Then you could think, okay, how can I fit into that? As a journalist, how am I going to fit myself into that and pitch my story to it? And then the other side of it would be, what are people not writing about? What do you think is important? What the people out there, the real people that we don't tend to see and are often underrepresented, what are they talking about that perhaps the media isn't talking about? So yeah, looking at both of those things, really, things that are really talked about, but also things that aren't talked about enough.
Yeah. Like I took a little gander at your muck rack earlier today, and one of your most
God knows
recent
what's on
pieces
there.
had a little gander. And one of the most recent pieces that stuck out to me was about an 18-year-old who is still in college, that has got this Lego eBay business, basically, that he's been able
Yeah.
to make 300 grand a year. So, like, with that story in particular, could you explain it to us in a little bit more detail? And also, how on earth did you find it?
In terms of going into the more detail of the story, I found it really fascinating because there's so many people out there at the moment with little side hustles, trying to find an extra way to earn a bit of money, whether it be a student or someone on a regular wage job that's maybe struggling and can't quite find enough to have those luxuries in life, and thinks, I could do a side hustle and do that. And there are lots of side hustles flying around on TikTok and all that sort of stuff. And it's hard to get through the noise sometimes and work out which ones are worthwhile doing. Often it's ones that you're passionate about and that you can find a little niche for. And this guy grew up like really liking, I guess, like a lot of us, Lego figures when you're younger. But he strangely had a real like business mindset from like age 13 or something, whereas I was just finding the next toy to play with. But he was thinking about, oh, I'll try and sell this on eBay for a few quid. And he did that. And then he realized, oh, what if I bought in some of these Lego pieces and sold them for a profit? Or what happens if I bought a bulk load of these, sold them on for a profit, and then the person who's going to take them off me is going to sell them individually and have their profit out of it. So they're going to earn some money too, and you're just part of a chain. So he got into that from like age 14. I think he had an accountant by like 15 or something like that. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But it was so interesting talking to him about that. And that's one of the reasons why I love the job, because you're talking to people who someone that you just wouldn't, well, if you met him on the street, you'd probably just think he was a normal student and he had nothing going on in the background. But yeah, he was quite a cool guy, and he didn't even imagine him taking it full time, which I thought was baffling. He just thought, I still want to have a career, which I thought actually, he had his head screwed on. He was thinking, maybe this won't last forever. I want to get qualified in something so that I actually have a profession as well as this going on. So I imagine he'd be quite a wealthy guy one day. Well, he probably already is, definitely as a student anyway. But yeah, it was fascinating. Seeing that one, and often you might chase a story and it might not quite come off, and it's really disappointing when it's one that you really like, and you really want that to do well. And some are quite hard to find and get through. Particularly that type of story is a bit more difficult than someone who is trying to raise awareness of an important issue because they really want to talk to you, and they're probably likely to reply a lot quicker and do everything you want photo wise and get everything ready for you quickly. But for someone who's just getting on with the business and what you do doesn't really impact them, they're earning lots of money anyway. They don't really need you there to help them earn more. It can be more difficult. So it was nice that one came off. It was really satisfying. Yeah.
So, like, okay, I think that's quite an interesting point, that you made, that not every single story that you pursue, comes off. Not every single one. So, like, what do you do when the stories don't necessarily, work out in the way that you envision?
We pray to the gods for more stories, basically. Yeah, that's how it works. But yeah, you chase a lot of stories. We
Yeah.
find ourselves chasing a lot, and then just the fact that you're chasing more means that more come back for you, and it means that you've got more on your conveyor belt of stories to bring forward. So every reporter, on every news desk will probably be thinking the same. It's like, okay, I need to do this many stories, or my aim is to file this many. If I'm going to do that, then I'm probably going to need to try and chase more than that, because I know that some might not come off, particularly in the line of work where I'm in, where you're not just copying a report that's already been made by someone else. Like, I'm not looking at the BBC and going, "Oh, someone's died in this country. I'm just going to cover it." Because you could do that regardless of whether the person wants to speak to you or not. You might be taking it from quotes from a source or something like that, or taking a press release. That they're sort of guaranteed stories that a lot of people would be able to write, and you can add them to your list of number that you need to hit for the month or something like that. But when it's you going out, finding those contributors and getting them on board, the chance of them being successful obviously is a lot lower, because some people just don't want to talk, and that's okay. We just move on and move on to other stuff. It's quite frustrating at times, because some people might drop out, and or you might just never get there in the first place to even be able to contact them. An idea that you have might not come off. There might not be someone who's having in that situation at the moment. You might have to wait a little bit for something to come off, but eventually it does. And if not, yeah, you just move on to something else.
Yeah. And that piece ended up in MSN UK, which are one of your clients, I assume?
So I think it was an exclusive in the Mirror. I think we placed it in the Mirror, but then obviously it ends up going on there via the Mirror, I think. I'm not sure how that works. But I think it was exclusive in the Mirror. We sent it out today. Hopefully going to get some more pickup over the next few days on that. But yeah, it was great that they wanted that one.
So, like, according to your LinkedIn, you do have quite a bit of involvement when it comes to like building those partnerships with different brands, different publications, TV programs from pretty much across the world. So what is the importance of like networking in your role?
Yeah, massive. So we don't sort of go out and have loads of meetings with these people. It's often through people contacting us and wanting our story. So they might have never worked with us before, but they might see a story out there that's made all the papers in the UK or whatever. Maybe they're one that hasn't used it, or it might be an outlet in America that's seen a story on a US outlet that we work with. They'll be like, "Oh, we really want that story." They'll get in touch with us, and we can work something out. So then from there on, we might say, "Oh, we produce content like this quite often. We'd like to link up," sort of thing, and work from there, and then we can provide stuff to them in future.
Yeah, I think it must be cool, like just seeing your name and your byline pretty much everywhere scattered across the industry. Like, does that feeling ever change for you?
No, it's always good. Always good. Some people get so used to it doesn't really bother them anymore. But then nerds like me will always want to see it in the newspaper and stuff. And I like, if I don't write as many anymore as I used to do, but whenever I get a story in print, I'll still go and buy the paper and then cut it out, sort of thing. And there's a little folder that I put it in. So even though I've been doing it, I've been working at this agency for 6 years now, I still like seeing that in print. It doesn't need my byline on it, as long as it's my story and I've written it. It doesn't matter whose name's on it, or if sometimes there's not even a name on it. But yeah, as long as it's my story, I'm happy, and that's there. In terms of online, yeah, it's great to see when you might put like a name in Google and that person's name appears on like 8 or 9 different, like all the national news sites or something like that. Or like you scroll through your Facebook feed and it's a post that, say Lad Bible have just put up or something like that, and it's your story and it is. It's got so much engagement. Or like your friend will send you a DM and it'll be like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, that's our story," sort of thing. The amount of people I've met just outside of the job, and they've sort of asked me who I am, what I do, sort of thing, and I'll explain a story that might have been really popular, and they'll be like, "Oh, I remember that at the time," and that's really cool. That the fact people remember your videos or your stories, that's cool. And being at an agency gives you a real ability to do that, because you're not just writing for one paper. Some papers may obviously syndicate it to others, but you're not just writing for one. You're trying to get it in as many as you can. Yeah,
I think that's cool. I think it's a good advert for like the new form of journalism, like what you just said there about it's not just seeing your name in print, seeing your byline in a physical paper anymore. It is people talking about it after seeing it on TikTok or Instagram or on Facebook. It really is multimedia. So then, okay, that works as a good segue. So You've been at Kennedy since 2020, so that's 6 years at this point. Tell me how Kennedy has changed from once you first started to where it is right now, and how's the business growing?
Ooh, interesting. Well, I've changed a lot because at the start I was that's my first job in journalism, so I came straight out of university onto onto freelancing basically during COVID. So that was quite crazy. I was I was able to work pretty much through the whole thing remote, just on my laptop. We do have an office, like we didn't work remote until COVID, and then when everything kicked off, we were just at home working from our laptops. But I was able to work on a freelance basis until like October 2020, when sort of like the lockdown had sort of ended. The first one had sort of ended up in the office. Um, Getting a full-time contract, which was so important at that time because it was difficult to get a job anywhere at that moment. You know, everyone finishing uni in June 2020 was going to have a tough time getting a job. So I was really happy when I finally was made permanent there, and was able to build up from there and write as many stories as possible. And yeah, just build myself up from there. Build your experience, because you only know you only know as much as the information you've got from the previous stories that you've done. So, although you're doing a lot of different stories, there are quite a lot of similarities with them. Or you might do case studies that are different, but on a similar subject, and you can learn how to keep yourself, keep the knowledge from the previous stories and apply them to the new ones and stuff. So it's all about building that knowledge, and the team has fluctuated in size over the years. Sometimes we're only a team of I think about 8 or 9 now, and we've always been around one desk, and it's great that we're quite collaborative. We're always speaking. We've got the group chat, but we're also out there speaking, around the table. It's really easy to talk about ideas, and ask questions. And from a learning perspective, as soon as I was back in that office, it was amazing just to be surrounded by great journalists who amazing at what they do and the stories that we write. And picking up everything from listening to them on a phone conversation, seeing how they treat people on Messenger, to get people on side, to how they write copy and things like that. You're not just getting work thrown back to you; you're getting feedback. So being in the office was really important. But yeah, the team has sort of changed in size over the years, because the staff turnover in journalism is probably a little bit higher than you get in a normal profession anyway. People just move to different places as it is. So I've worked with lots of people over the last 6 years. It's probably me and only 2 others that are still there for the past 6 years. So it's been cool to see other journalists develop, and then me become someone who other people rely on for that sort of guidance and advice over the years, and particularly over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. It's been me guiding people as well as writing my own things, and then now I'm writing a little bit less, and taking more of a leadership role and working out what direction we should be going and what stories we should be writing, which we shouldn't be writing, and then how to maximize the output. Really, that's sort of my job now.
Yeah. As you're taking a little bit more of you're taking more so a leadership role. How many NA or School of Journalism graduates have you been almost like a mentor to during your time at Kennedy?
So many. I obviously I learned from so David, who runs the company. He used to work at News Associates. So it's born out of that collaboration with News Associates over the years, and we've loved knowing that when we bring someone in from News Associates, they're going to have that really top standard of training, because you never know. Sometimes you might see a CV from a university and you're not quite sure how much real life experience they've had from that university degree. Some of them are great, obviously, but when we know, like, because I've been there, and the boss has been there, and quite a few of us have been there. When we see news associate student and we can speak to the guys who run and operate that, about that person, if we need to, then it really gives that person a really good grounding and a good standing for us, because we know we can trust the people at News Associates to train them well, but also we know they wouldn't get through the course unless they were decent, because it's tough, as you know. So you've got to be a tough cookie, and you've got to be really wanting to be a journalist to really succeed at a News Associates course. So I'm trying to think of the number, but at least 5 or 6 people, other people we've worked with, and they've gone on to move to other places or stick around. But it's been great working with them and knowing that they're from there. That was great. We've only just moved offices. I think it was about a year and a few months ago. We moved over to Northern Quarter in Manchester. When we split up from where we were with News Associates in Manchester. So we've only been away from them for sort of a year, but we still look out for, anyone that is interested in a job. If we're offering one at the time, News Associates, is always a big provider of people to look out for. So it's great.
Is there anybody that comes to mind? Anybody that you especially want to give a shout out to? Anybody that comes to mind?
No, I couldn't say, because if I did, then there'll be people going, "Oh, why didn't you mention me?" So I'll keep that to myself. But
I'm not gonna lie.
Everyone's been great. We've never hated anyone. So that's always a good start.
It was a cheeky question. So then, okay, you were on the very, very first School of Journalism course back in 2017, and as I said in the intro, School of Journalism has been around for 9. Going on 10 years now at this point. However, you are one of the originals. So tell me about your experience studying multimedia journalism and the skills that you learned also studying for your NCTJ.
Yeah, it feels crazy that you said it's coming on to 10 years since that started. I mean, that makes you feel really old. But so I came straight out of A-levels, and really I knew I wanted to be a journalist sort of from age 15. I was quite lucky that I'd decided what I wanted to do. So I knew that if I want to be a journalist, I've got to find the best path to doing that as quick as possible. I knew that I couldn't spend 3 years traveling around Europe or whatever people do. I had to get a job. I wanted to get a job, work, and get started straight away. And the best way to do that from people in the industry and people at who sort of came to college was like, get yourself an NCTJ. It was always talk about the NCTJ diploma. I was doing a bit of work experience around the summers while I was at college, and a lot of them talked about that. So then my natural thought was, okay, so who's the best at NCTJ? And then obviously News Associates comes up, back when they did the league tables and things like that. So I was looking at that and thinking, right, okay, how can I get into there? I was like, oh, there's an office in Manchester. That's amazing. And I went to a couple of taster sessions, if you like, sort of thing, after college, when I was looking to work out, where I wanted to go for university, that sort of thing. And I just loved how hands-on the sessions were when I was there doing that. It was filled with a lot of people from university that were going to try and do, the fast track course, so basically their masters. So I was probably the youngest there for a few of those sessions, but I just wanted to keep going back. And they were doing all sorts of exercises, like, I don't know if you've done the Spinnaker Tower one. Basically, like, it's a live news exercise where Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth is like, is it blown up or it falls down? Yeah, there's like a live news exercise. There's a video of Spinnaker Tower like falling down, and you're reporting live on it at the moment, and information is drip fed to you, and you've got to be producing live news reports. I'm not sure whether it was a live blog or certainly an article, starting say from like 250 words, and then you would be like more to follow, and you'd have more information coming later on. You'd have to work out what was dodgy info that you wasn't able to verify, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then they would look back at the end and show you what you should have had in there, what you shouldn't, what your top line should have been, what it definitely should have been. And then, any errors, and go through that sort of thing. Those live news exercises really got your blood pumping in that room, and everyone was really keen to do well. And getting that buzz from that moment made you feel like, oh, I really want to do this. I'm certain that I want to do this, sort of thing. So those exercises really got me into it. And then I had to decide where I wanted to go for university, and the School of Journalism was it was a brand new thing. So I was really excited to hear that they were going to be offering something like this, because I didn't want to go to university and just do a university degree in history or something like that. Like, I liked English language and history, so I probably would have done something like that if it was a bit more generic. But I wanted to do like a vocational course, and I knew that the best people to do that with would be news associates. So when they said there was going to be a degree course that would bring in the diploma at the same time, it's like, oh, that's going to be amazing. Like I need to go there. So yeah, I applied for that. Luckily, it was in Manchester. It started up in Manchester, and I'm from Warrington, so it's literally I work every day now. It's an hour commute, so it's absolutely fine on the train. And yeah, I applied for that, and luckily got accepted. Got the grades that I needed at A level to do it. And yeah, and we started, and there was only a group of, I think there was about maybe six of us on the course, which was amazing because it meant that we were a really closely knit group. We knew each other so well. We were from all different backgrounds, different places in the world. Um, and it was so interesting to spend like 3 years with them training in such a small group. And it meant that you had such an intense atmosphere in there because you were being taught, yeah, like one teacher to six pupils. So if you had an issue, you could get that sorted out. And yeah, it was fun too. It was so hands-on, and they made sure that it wasn't like just a uni degree where you're, just writing and doing lots of theory. It's very hands-on, going out and reporting on things, and they were linking you up with, theatre reviews to do and things like that. You'll get tickets to see things for free in return of doing the review and putting it on Mancunian Matters. And obviously, you guys down south, you've got your own publications down there, so you're able to see your content getting published as well. And then that published work could be used as part of your degree, a part of your diploma. So it's invaluable, really. You're getting things out there in the real world, but also academically as well.
Yeah. I can confirm that Spinnaker Tower does still exist.
It
But
does.
it is now
Not using it.
the National Exhibition Centre.
I thought you meant the exercise.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah. The exercise, yeah. I heard it, I was like, Spinnaker Tower, I've never heard of that in my life. But then you started explaining it, and I was like, hold on, this is sounding very similar. But those workshops, for anybody listening, they are still going. So if you do want to get a good taster into journalism, by all means. But that's my final egregious plug of the episode, guys. That's my final one. But yeah, it's really, really cool to hear that on that first course, you had such a close-knit group. And it seems like for a person like you, the course was just what you were looking for. You still keep in contact with some of your friends from the course?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've still got a group chat, and quite often there'll be stories that will end up linking up on because I might file it down our newswire. One of the guys might pick it up, whether they're working for Lab Bible or the Sun, or the MEN. We've got a guy there. There's sometimes you'll see their byline on it, and you'll be like, "Oh, thanks for picking up the work," sort of thing. Like, glad you liked it. And yeah, it's nice to link up that way, but also socially, yeah, I still see a couple of the lads from there, when we talk on group chats and things like that. So yeah, it's really nice to have that, and those connections are invaluable because you cross so many people. The more you work in journalism, and you do have lots of people that you might just dip in and out of, but if you've got a core group of a few people that you'll speak to no matter what, then that's always good.
I think it's the nice thing about the journalism industry that those people that you meet that when you're very much networking sideways, people that you are growing alongside, they end up being your mates, but they end up being your colleagues. Maybe you're competing with each other for a couple of jobs, of course, or competing each other for a quick byline or an exclusive. Yeah, that's just the nature of the industry. But I think that the industry and people in it are always willing to help others that were in their situation before. So I think that works as a nice segue. So if you had to give yourself a piece of advice, let's say, for example, you got the opportunity to speak to 17-year-old Adam who was going to the NA workshops, but very much it's 2026. What piece of advice would you tell him going into the industry now?
Just keep at it. Don't drop your intensity. I think that's important. Don't rest on your laurels because you can get to a certain point and then be like, "Oh, I'll be all right from here." But then it's important that you keep up doing what you're doing because the reason why you're at the point you are is because you worked so hard before it. So I think, yeah, 17-year-old me had worked pretty hard for the past couple of years because I knew that I wanted to be a journalist. But then you've got to know that you've got to put the extra hard yards in over the next 3 years to make sure you're actually going to be able to get a job. because you never know what's on the horizon, like COVID. I mean, literally anything can happen. So you've got to do it while you can. I think that was a big plus for me, being able to do a lot of that work experience before COVID happened and doing it during those 3 years and knowing people before that all kicked off. Because if I didn't have that experience or those contacts before COVID, there's no way I would have made them during it. And then you're out of a job, and then you start thinking, well, I need to pay bills. I'm gonna have to get a job in something else, and then that starts taking up your time, and you can't commit all your time to being a journalist. But when you're a student, you definitely can. You can do those extra things in your spare time. So do it knowing that you might not be able to do it in a few years. You've got to do it while you can.
Yeah. And it seems like you are into your sports as well. You're a Manchester City fan and a Warrington fan as well. And those work experience opportunities that you did while you were at university, a lot of it was Manchester City related. So yeah, let's talk City Watch, for example. How did that go, and how did you find like just being able to talk about your team, as a career?
Yeah, so the reason why I got involved in City, like user-generated content sort of stuff, was through news associates. There was a lad on a course, on one of the fast-track courses, who was a big City fan, and he was producing content for this outlet that was called City Watch back then. And I really wanted to get into that. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into sports journalism or not, but I knew that I just loved writing and talking about City. And that was like an area of expertise that I knew I would be able to, make contacts in and then maybe move around once I got into that. So I was like, right, let's get into that. And I submitted a few like practice pieces and things like that. And then, I was sort of given a position to write some stuff. Then we started a podcast on there. And our presenter was Ian Cheeseman, who's like, for people in the Northwest, they'll know him as like a really big BBC radio commentator until around 2016. And then he started doing his own stuff. So we got him to host our podcast while we were guests on there. And then we'd manage that and grow it. So that was really fun to do. So also have the writing side of things, but then you've got the multimedia aspect of like Twitter being our main traffic driver, getting a podcast going and things like that. And that was the first experience that I had of really going out there and doing your own thing, and knowing that if you didn't do it, no one was going to do it, because you've not got like a big boss, ahead of you, a big company that's going to be able to carry you forward. It's you guys, you are running it, sort of thing. And that means that you haven't got a picture desk, you haven't got a video desk, or like 5 people with cameras that are going to sort out everything. It's you've got to work out how you're going to get somewhere. And I think that's invaluable experience. It hasn't been so much direct experience for me in terms of like the podcast side of it, because I don't get in that. But in terms of doing pretty much every aspect of things yourself, whether it be interviewing, getting the pictures together, putting everything out there, that really gave you that drive of, I need to do everything here. So yeah, that was good grounding for that. I decided I didn't want to go into sports journalism because I didn't like the idea of my passion being like my hobby being my work. Obviously I enjoy my work and I really like it on a day-to-day basis, but in my spare time on a Saturday, I wouldn't write a news piece. I would go and watch the football. But so if I was to go and be a sports journalist and be sent to, say, I don't know, Peterborough on a Saturday at 3:00 when I could be watching Man City with my family, I'd be quite annoyed at that. So I just knew that I didn't want to go into sport. I wanted to keep things a little bit separately like that, have a hobby outside of work, my passion being football, supporting and things like that. And then, have my job that I enjoy doing, but just not in the niche area that I take pride in loving outside of their work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for answering my questions up until this point. I've got to the point where this next section of the podcast, lots of people, sometimes people go ahead and watch other episodes, and what they'll do, they will find out what my questions are, because I don't change them.
I've not done that.
Oh, okay. This is brilliant. This is great. This is great. Okay. So the next round is the fast and furious round of the pod. Quick questions, and If you can keep it brief, keep it brief. If you want to add a little bit more, I'm flexible. That's completely all right. But the first one is, are you an extrovert or are you an introvert?
Extrovert.
Night owl or early riser?
Early riser. I'm starting to go to the gym at 6 a.m. now and I'm loving it. Yeah.
Get to start the day as you mean to go on. Dream interview if you haven't interviewed them already.
Oh, I'd say Pep Guardiola.
Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Where do you think he's going to end up? Do you think he'll take the Italy job?
Oh, I'd love him to take the England job after the Euros.
Let's say after this interview, you were going to Media City and you had the opportunity to interview Pep Guardiola. What song would you play to psych yourself up for the interview?
I'd say I'll go for a bit of Oasis because he likes Oasis and so do I. I'd maybe go with Rock and Roll Star because it's very up-tempo and it makes you want to sort of like get on your toes and really go for whatever you're about to do and like put your all into it. And I think like I'd need a bit of that confidence that Liam Gallagher has to go in there and ask Pep some questions that, you know, maybe you wouldn't want to answer or just like meeting an idol. I think you've got to be going in there not too timid and face up to it. And I think a bit of Liam Gallagher swagger would help there.
Nice. I mean, Liam Gallagher does have swagger for days. If, as a fan, what would be one question that you'd want to ask Pep?
Can you manage England, please? Not a very journalistic question, but as a fan, it would be that. As a journalist, what would I want to ask him as a journalist? Which player was the hardest to manage and why? Ooh, who would he? Maybe Jack Grealish. He might come up with just because he's he's got that raw talent, but you know that he's just his personal life is so crazy and he's so up for doing all the stuff that we do as non-footballers, going out for a drink and enjoying life, that he probably hasn't fulfilled his potential. And Pep will probably be, banging on his head, going, just concentrate for a little bit. And him and maybe Phil Foden's a bit like that too nowadays. But yeah, those people who don't have the head fully on football, despite having all that raw talent and knowing that he would be able to make them, into one of the best players in the world if they just focused harder.
Okay. Favorite concert you have ever been to?
Okay. I would say Oasis at Wembley in September. Yeah, last year. That was amazing. I was at Heaton Park for the gig in July last year as well. Oasis, my favourite band. I've loved them since I was about 15 years old. I never thought I'd be able to see my favourite band live. And then seeing the comeback was just next level. The sound is always better in a stadium compared to a field. So comparing those two together, it would be Wembley. We were in like the front section. It was amazing. And yeah, it's everything that I wanted to be over those two gigs. So yeah, I'd say the Wembley gig.
Yeah. Okay. And then final one would be one word to describe your career as of right now.
Fun. Yeah, it's been good fun. All sorts of stories. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Okay. And with that, thank you very much for coming onto the How to Be a Journalist podcast and for tapping in on midweek on Wednesday. And I've had a lot of fun speaking to you. Everything when you're talking about being on the First Lodge course, but also the intricacies of working at a news agency has been helpful for me. Just to know a little bit more in detail. And sometimes as well, I'm giving tours around the building and I point to Kennedy News Media. I'm like, they're our news agency. They create lots of viral news content. But now when I give that tour, it's going to be a little bit more enhanced, you could say.
There we go.
Just like that. So with that, I've been Plamedi Mbungu, and this has been How to Be a Journalist.